Because you need to put on breaks every now and then.
There it is, a 7.
Good evening.
Good evening, younger than me.
Pastor Tom Seppo from Operation Transformation is going to lead us with the invocation this evening, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us, please stand at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Councilmen and councilwomen, mostly I should say, the majority. It's always a joy and a privilege to be able to come and pray and ask God's blessing upon you and your families and this great community of ours. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege that you give us to come at this particular time and say thank you for the many blessings that you give to us. Lord, I thank you for this great city, Lord, and as we continue to pray for those other communities around us that might be struggling a little bit, I pray that you would allow us to be leaders and do the right things and always be ready to love our neighbors as ourselves. And Lord, I thank you that you give wisdom and direction to those who ask, and so we're asking that for the council tonight. We thank you, Lord, for these proceedings. We ask your blessings upon each one that's here tonight. We pray this in your powerful name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Monday, September the 23rd. If the clerk would please read the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Beeden. Here. Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Here.
Councilmember Warden.
Here.
Mayor Rapp.
Here. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of September the 9th. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So move, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there any additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes will stand as submitted. We do have one presentation tonight. If the clerk would please read it.
A proclamation will be presented to the Kyle Bailey Foundation on their continuous effort to raise awareness for organ donation.
Good evening, Kyle. Good evening. I'm going to read this certificate of recognition where a City of Port Huron resident, Kyle Bailey, is a quadruple organ transplant recipient who has dedicated his life to helping others and raising awareness for organ donation. And whereas after being born with cystic fibrosis, Kyle Bailey received a bilateral lung transplant in 2011 and then a liver and kidney transplant in 2016. And whereas Kyle's gratitude for his life-saving transplants has compelled him to encourage others to recycle life with organ donation. And whereas in 2018, Kyle founded the Kyle Bailey Foundation, a nonprofit organization that promotes organ donation and donates all of its proceeds to St. Clair County families of children with disabilities who are in need of financial medical assistance. And whereas to raise awareness and fundraise, Kyle completes long-distance bike rides because one organ donor can save up to 8 lives and one tissue donor can save up to 50 lives. Now therefore I, Pauline M. Rep, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Port Huron, and on behalf of council members Archibald, Ashford, Beeden, Harris, Pemberton, and Warden, do hereby issue the certificate of recognition to the Kyle Bailey Foundation as an acknowledgement of our respect for his commitment to helping others and our appreciation for his dedication to our community.
Councilman, Mayor Rep, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for taking a few minutes out of your time to recognize the foundation. It is near and dear to me. Unfortunately, I have been on oxygen, suffered cirrhosis, and had dialysis. As Michigan's only 4 organ transplant and less than 50 in the world with 4 or more organs, I feel it is my duty to lead the way in organ donation. 95% of Americans believe in organ donation, yet only half of our country is a registered donor. So I've taken the liberty of showing others, as well as physical feats of myself, to prove that organ donation is worth it. So I'd like to thank you. I want to give a special thanks to Councilmember Ken Harris. He's known me a long time. He's always supported this. Scott Warden is one of my Elk members since I work at the Elks.
You're amazing.
And appreciate it. And he's taken the time and donated, and I appreciate it on behalf of the foundation. And Anita Ashford, thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me finish a 341-mile journey in 6 days from Mackinac Bridge to Port Huron in awareness 5 weeks ago, which I can't believe it's 5 weeks already. And this is not the last. I will be getting bigger and bigger, and I will take this nationally. And I'm proud to call Port Huron the home of the Kyle Bailey Foundation. So I hope to see all of you eventually at one of the events and promote life. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on with the agenda. We have one public hearing tonight. If the clerk would please read that.
To hear comments on Code Case 19-1335, located at 1214 Lincoln Avenue, to determine whether it constitutes a nuisance as defined by city code. Following the hearing, council will consider approving the immediate demolition of the structure for listed violations.
Before we open it up for anybody in the audience, I don't know if, are you prepared, David, to give a little presentation on this one? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This is a code case before you at 1214 Lincoln Avenue. This has been an issue in the neighborhood for quite some time. Initially, we were looking at the overall condition of the exterior, in which porch columns were falling over and the roof structure was becoming unsupported. At the same time, as we were noting the condition of the exterior, we were getting reports from the surrounding neighbors that there were odors coming from the home, and they were flagging the backyard, and that there were issues with the availability of running water at this location. Subsequently, we went and had an administrative search warrant issued due to all the conditions of the property, both the concern on the exterior and the safety of the porch, and then also the issues that we anticipated were going on the inside. Going through the interior, we had our electrical inspector, we had our plumbing and mechanical inspector, our building official, myself, and also we had Kevin McNeil from the County Health Department. We found the house to be in deplorable condition. There was evidence of feces throughout, also human and canine. The electrical was in poor condition. The plumbing obviously had not been working, and there had been issues in the past. Overall condition of the house we felt was a threat to the neighborhood, and therefore we have brought this before you today as a code case and a nuisance to the neighborhood, and acting and requesting that we act.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Haynes before we open it up to the audience? Yes, Councilmember Harris.
Just a comment, you know, in my past experiences with walking the community and stuff, this has been an eyesore for more than 4 or 5 years, probably close to 7 or 8 years. And it's kind of deteriorated down here, and sometimes good things happen, and I was really appreciative today, because I went out by there and checked it again today, and a house that's quite similar to it, just a block north, they're doing some aggressive work on cleaning it up. So maybe sometimes doing good things and straightening up some of the bad things is contagious, and if that's a result, I think we're doing a good thing with this, so thank you.
Hey, Rep.
Yes.
David,
Councilman.
it was vacant, right? It has been vacant.
No, at the time it was occupied by Diane Gartner. Upon the inspection of the property, it was our building official's judgment that there was a safety issue, a health and safety issue that was immediate. So we ordered the vacation of the home because of its condition.
Oh, okay. So these pictures that you took, because it says the structure, it lists here as vacant on your on the code enforcement, and that's why they were living in this condition of safety.
Correct.
And this is what you took a pic, okay. Wow. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Barrett.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. I'll now open it up if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to address this code case. Just please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is Albert Giroux. Diana Gardner is my mother. She's right there. We have not had access to our home at all since they have told us we had to vacate. We actually left before that because they had told us that we needed to leave earlier, and that was like a month before they gave us the notice that we had to vacate. We have not had access. They have not been contacting us. We actually found out about this meeting today through our mortgage company and through Community Action Agency. My mother's on disability. My brother lives out in St. Clair, and people that live out there know how expensive everything is. I've been paying on the mortgage and everything. My mom and my brother have pretty much given up on the property. I've been paying on the mortgage. I haven't had the money with paying for an apartment, plus food, plus my medical bills, and everything to be able to get the problems that need to be fixed. When we were made to vacate, we had just gotten everything that we needed to get done to get the water fixed. We've tried getting help to get the porch done and everything. We keep getting told that there's no funding for us at all. But yet we're being told, when we've been jerked around on it, 1 minute it's we can get funding for it from the city, next minute we can't. And we're getting all sorts of different excuses as to why we can't or what's up with the property. Now, we're on a land contract. I understand that's one of the issues, but we got told that there was stuff for that to help us, and then next minute we couldn't because we had no insurance on the house, which we did have insurance. Because I don't know what's going on. We've asked for help. My mother's low income. I'm fighting for trying to keep a job myself because of my medical problems. And we want the home. We do. But there isn't much that we can do with having the limitations on finances that we have. Now, we haven't been able to get in there to clean anything, nothing. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be that bad right now. The water would be on if we would have had access to the home. We had 15 minutes to go in since we have left, and they gave us the notice to vacate. We've had 15 minutes to go in and grab our belongings, and that is it. I can't even get into the inside of the house to put anything inside there to do any work. So if I do get supplies, there's no room in the garage because we were using that for storage. Where am I supposed to put the supplies if I can't have access to my own home?
We will discuss this at the time that the motion comes before us, and we'll have Mr. Haynes explain it, but I do see on the report here that you were sent a notice on August the 5th. 20-day notice sent with
Never received, we haven't even received mail since we got the notice to vacate the premises at that house.
The day we got locked out of our home, we stopped getting mail.
Well, you have to put a forwarding address through the post office, probably.
We didn't know that the post office had stopped giving us our mail. We went to the house to get it every day.
Okay, well, we won't go back and forth right now, but we will discuss this when we have this.
Such deplorable conditions 7 years ago, why did you sell it to us 5 years ago?
We'll discuss all that when we have the motion on the floor, but we appreciate you coming and telling us your side of the story, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We were told that we could get in, and we have not been allowed in for anything. I've had to use a chair to make my way across the parking lot because my wheelchair is blocked in that house.
We'll discuss that in just one moment, okay? Is there a motion to bring this to the floor, or is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to address this subject matter before we bring it up for Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I need a motion to.
Bring to the floor.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. I wonder if we could have some further explanation from.
David, you want to address some of those concerns?
Yes, we have made notifications through the first class, for the first class mail, certified mail. We've also worked with Department of Human Services, and I'm contacting Amy Bark at the Department of Human Services, trying to communicate, and at this point, we haven't had any compliance with the property. With the condition, prior to this, we tried to have compliance, but after seeing the condition of the home and how it has been kept, and with the condition in which the neighborhood has had to deal with for the last 18 months, based on the inspections that we've had through our mechanical and plumbing, the house is in a deplorable condition.
So in other words, it isn't worth rehabbing.
At this point, yeah, exactly. The costs to rehab this property, between all of the electrical updates, what would have to be done just to sanitize the inside because of its condition, it would be best that just to tear it down and start from ground zero.
In answer to her concerns, do they have an opportunity to take any belongings out of the house?
We will make every opportunity for them as the next steps to clear out the items, the personal items within the house prior to any action.
Okay. Anyone on council have questions for Mr. Haynes?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Warden.
just a couple things that I mentioned. There's a mortgage company involved in this as well, and they said there's a land contract, so there's the deed holder is somebody else as well. Is that the person that has the mortgage, or is it the current occupants that have the mortgage?
First National Bank of America is holding the mortgage on the property. We've been in contact with them to notify them of this, to see if they would have interest in stepping forward. So far, they have not.
So again, do you know if it's the land contract holder that has the mortgage, or is it another party that's selling it on land contract?
It's First National Bank of America.
Just directly?
Yeah.
So they actually own the home?
They own the home, and there was actually a prior resident before Ms. Gartner, in which that person left in lieu of foreclosure, and then Diane Gardner came in and was subsequent.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can hold a land contract with the bank too, as well as a private person?
Yeah, Rep.
Yes, Councilmember Ashford.
Yeah, Dave, I know, where was I gonna go with this without sounding weird here? You know, in your litany of reach outs, that they weren't qualified to get certain help in here. Why weren't they qualified? Do you know, remember?
In talking with community development, some of the issues were the insurance, the land contract. There are certain restrictions that HUD has on our CDBG and home dollars, and that was the reasons why funding was difficult. But also the extent of what we can do is up to 20,000, and there's well beyond the scope of 20,000.
Yeah, I see that.
20,000 would probably address the porch only. That wouldn't even begin to address what's going on in the inside of the home.
Oh, okay. And then also, I know the public, you can't really see the, just the kind of like, the picture's really clear enough, but all the cords and everything that's running through, that's how, that is the picture, okay? And then, is that a hole in the roof, or?
Yes. That's the porch area leading to the second story that is unsupported.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Any other questions?
Mayor Rupp?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
David, you said there were letters sent included certified. Did you receive anything back, any read receipts or receipts saying they received any of that? Or were they returned to you?
The clerk has them right here.
Should I ask the clerk?
Yes, so after the last meeting, I had 4 addresses in which I sent it certified and then by regular mail. All the regular mail did not come back. As for the certified, First National Bank received it, Blue Water Community Action received it, and then one of the addresses that I was provided for, Diane Gardner, came back.
Thank you.
So how long
It was
have,
sent to 2 different addresses. This one was 1123 Ward Street, and then the address of the actual house at 1214.
you know,
Yes.
so they've been out of the house ever since we made,
The inspection,
The
have they been out
inspection.
since the inspection?
so they have a home to live in. I mean, they have,
And that was the reason for contacting DHS is to,
okay.
is to work
To
with.
provide a home.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to proceed with the immediate demolition of the structure for the listed violations. We have a motion and a second, so we need to take a vote if there's no more
Can he clarify that DHS finding a home?
I'm sorry, we don't normally go back and forth, but because of the issue, I will ask for just this one question. DHS as far as finding a home.
On August 5th, Amy Bark was contacted again and looking to find out and working with the owner and trying to secure housing. So we continue to try to work with the available services to have them come and provide assistance.
Mayor Rapp. Amy Vargas with the Community Action Agency.
Yes.
not
Oh, I'm sorry.
DHS.
Yeah.
So they would be the ones that would be working with the family, also received the certified letter and helping to find a home.
And it does state in this too that Mrs. Bart confirmed that the owner did receive the 20-day notice. She must have told her. So, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We will take a vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes,
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp.
Yes. You will be given an opportunity to remove your items from the house. Mr. Haynes will take it.
That's probably another lie.
You will be given that opportunity.
It's been done to us for 5 years.
We will move on with public comment. If there's anyone else in the audience that wants to speak to any other subject matter on the agenda, please come at this time, give us your name, and you have 4 minutes.
Hi, my name is Chris Troy, 1229 7th Street. 3 quick things. One, I'd like to congratulate the roof sitters. Thought that was really awesome. They collected a lot of money, so that was great for the community. Number 2, I'd like to publicly thank my neighbors with porches, Dave Califf, providing sound, all the musicians, and the city council members who did come to the Old Town Day of Porch concerts, especially Mayor Rep, who said a few nice words before it got started. We had close to 200 people. The weather was absolutely beautiful, and it couldn't have gone on better than it did. For being the first kind of swing at it, you know, I was really happy with the way everything came out. Third comment, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Court and Union traffic lights. As you know, I live on the corner of 7th and Union, and the problem that we have at 7th and Union is Union kind of dead ends right down to the gas station, which for a lot of the families is kind of the convenience store. So we have a lot of family foot traffic that cross 7th Street going down to that gas station. Just a few days prior to this weekend, there was a family that was walking along, and my wife and I noticed that 2 little boys had gotten ahead of them, and there was a black car just flying down 7th Street. I kind of yelled, The mother looked, scooted forward, grabbed one of them by the hoodie and pulled it back, and the car shot right back. There was no looking, there was no, all I knew was a black Cavalier. I couldn't get the plate, though we did try. It's a really busy, speedy track through there. And I know that you guys have got designs that you're looking for with the master plan to try to figure out traffic. I just hope there's some way we can accommodate the foot traffic that goes through there. Not just so much convenience, but literally for saving lives. And I'm not trying to be over dramatic about that. We see cars that go ripping through there. I got past in front of St. Joseph's Church on 7th Street, and I was probably going 30 miles an hour. And I know some of my neighbors also have experienced the same type things. As a kind of a side note, I visited the city of Plymouth this weekend, and in their historic districts, they have a number of four-way stops with stop signs, and at those four-way stops, they also have speed bumps, which I thought was kind of a, well, that's certainly going to slow somebody down from running a stop sign. I wouldn't say it was all of them, but we did encounter a couple times. So I just hope there's a plan out there. There's some way you guys can work with us, with the neighbors, to figure this out. So again, thank you all for coming to the Porch Concerts. It was fun. Congratulations on the roof sitting, and thank you all for all your help making the events happen here in this town.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. I'm sorry I'm losing my voice this week, so bear with me. I'm going to let Laura do the talking. I'm going to pass out. We've been working together. Well, we haven't heard back from Mr. Freed yet about our committee that we're supposed to be trying to, I guess, work together with. So we sat and we put together some information that we would like to give to each one of you so that on your own time you can go ahead and take a look at it. And we can kind of go from there. Just let her talk.
I received your phone call. I've just been on vacation.
Can I have your name again?
It's Nina Kinney.
I'm sorry to make you talk. I didn't.
Hi, and I'm Laura Rigby, and I'm helping Nina with this project. We just got a few articles that we put together. We did go ahead and print off a copy of the new law, just so you had one handy and on paper you can doodle on. We addressed some of Councilmember Harris's concerns that I did go on to SEMCOG and find where you had some concerns. So we did include some articles. One of the best articles that I thought was really pertained had to do with Bay City. Bay City is very similar to Port Huron, right down to the drawbridges. And what they have done and put together has actually increased their homeowner values exstantially. We put that through there, and there's one building in there that it was listed for $59,000 and now it's up over $300,000, and it didn't move. All they did was just put it in what they called the green zone, where a potential marijuana business can go into. I also noticed that when you go in there, it's not just the commercial buildings where the property values have gone up so high. It's also the homeowners and the residential properties that are in the area have also doubled and sometimes even tripled, just by the city designating that as a cannabis area. Another thing that I know that a lot of people are concerned about is the crime rates. So we also included where it didn't go up like they were expecting it to. And there's just a lot of different information. There are about 14 to 12 to 14 different articles that are in those packets. And if you have any questions or if you want to find out where I got the information from, you're more than welcome to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Greetings, Mayor and Council members. Jim Fisher, 816 Court Street here in Port Huron. And I would just like to request that resolution number 2 be removed from the consent agenda tonight. That is the resolution about removing the traffic lights at 7th and Court and 7th and Union. I understand that there's maybe not as much vehicular traffic as necessary on those corners as to warrant traffic lights, but our concern, or especially my concern, is with pedestrian travel through there. I know my wife and I at least once a week ride bicycles through that area. I see a number of pedestrians, and it's just the ability to have safe passage for pedestrians across 7th Street which is, of course, one of our main trunk lines and is fairly busy. I understand like the Traffic Control Committee or Traffic Study Committee is interested in the safe and unimpeded flow of traffic, and so that vehicles can get from here to there as quickly and as unimpeded as possible, but that isn't also necessarily always the best thing for pedestrians in the area. Sometimes a visual speed bump in a stop sign or a actual speed bump might be good to slow down the traffic and help keep people safe. We have been seeing a much more increase of the number of teens and children in our area, which is kind of exciting to see some young families move in. But again, I just want to make sure that they are safe as they walk down to the main street or walk downtown. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the city council this evening? Seeing no one, I'll declare public comment closed. We will move on to the consent agenda, and if someone does want to remove number 2 from the consent agenda,
Mayor Rapp, I would request we remove number 2, please.
and you're all making a motion to adopt this.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Mayor Pro Tem
I got ahead of
Archibald.
myself.
And supported, I believe I heard Councilmember Ashford. Did I not?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Resolution 5, please.
You want 5 off too?
Yes, please.
Okay. Then we will take a vote on the balance.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. Items that were approved as receiving and filing notification from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission that an application has been received for a new SDM license permit and a new Sunday sales permit for Family Dollar Stores of Michigan, LLC, located at 2700 Pine Grove Avenue, making permanent temporary traffic control order 1364, which states the intersection of Michigan Street and Grand River Avenue shall be a 4-way stop, authorizing and supporting the submission of a grant application to St. Clair County Parks and Rec Commission Skate Park Fund as matching funds to be applied toward the construction of a concrete skate park facility to be located in Optimus Park, and recognizing the Port Huron Museum of Arts and History as a nonprofit organization in the city of Port Huron. We will now move to, from the city manager, number 1.
Accepting the bid from Huron Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $9,900 for the removal and disposal of excavated materials at 1808 Bancroft Street.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Pemberton, is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Discussion.
Madam Mayor, you have the attached memo. These typically we do this on an annual basis. We rotate from bins to the various bins. And so, as you can tell, our prices have been rising since 2016, but this is pretty typical with the market right now. These guys are very busy and don't need this kind of work.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yep, Mayor Rapp.
Councilmember Ashford.
So the amount, is it based on the amount within the bin?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yep, an estimated quantity.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. Item 2.
Accepting the quote from Kerr Pump and Supply in the amount of $13,090 for the replacement of the high-pressure flushing pump at the wastewater treatment plant.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Ashford. Discussion.
Mayor Rapp.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yeah, I understand, according to your memo, we're going to do the installation? Are we, we're
Yep.
capable of, oh, okay. And how much will that save us?
Do you have an idea of what that'll save? Doing the installation ourselves?
Oh, okay. So you don't know, but is it a lot, a little bit, or nothing? No, I just want to know, you said you put it in there yourself, so it must be some significance as to why we're going to do it ourselves. Is we're going to gain from it, or we're going to gain by doing it ourselves? Oh, okay.
If we can do it ourselves, we typically don't contract it out.
Oh, okay.
One of the less glamorous jobs of keeping good government working. But this is, I mean, you think about this is what people do to keep our city running. And if we didn't have these people who did this type of work, our city would come to a halt, screeching stop. So we appreciate the work of the wastewater plant.
Right. And then also, and in the time frame that this was broken down, we have been struggling. Is that the case here? So we've been struggling, so if not now, when? We need to do something now. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? We will take a vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to item 3 under from the city manager.
Approving amendments to the 2018-2019 budget.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Pemberton, is there a second?
Support?
Councilmember Beeden.
Madam Mayor, if I could, this is just again a testament to the success of the Sperry's development. They had a revolving loan from HUD through us, and they paid it off remarkably early. But because of that, we weren't anticipating early payoffs so soon. It was supposed to be like 5-10 years out. We do have to amend our budget to account for receiving that payment and then expelling it back to HUD.
Good.
Mayor Rep,
Yes.
just to go along with those comments, again, that type of tool that took a while to put in place, to have somebody come in to not only fulfill that total renovation and great development, and then to be able to pay it off early is, you know, a lot of positives there that I want to thank them for what they're doing over there at the Sperry's building. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to piggyback off of that, that's just one, not only a tool, but that's just part of HUD's, part of the block grants that was already there from its inception many years ago, that those are some of the nuggets that you could dive into as far as economic development. So we could do a lot with some of these pieces of legislation if we just dig into them deep enough to continue to build the city of Port Huron. Thank you.
We will take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to resolutions. Number 1.
Approving the comprehensive financial plan and authorizing the publication of the notice of intent to issue limited tax general obligation bonds to finance a part of the cost of the city's unfunded pension liability for its defined benefit plan retirement program as authorized by Act 34, Public Acts of Michigan 2001 as amended.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mayor
I
Pro
didn't
Tem
erase, I'll
Archibald, supported by Councilmember Ashford. And our city manager is going to do a brief presentation on this.
As I wait for my PowerPoint to come up, I will say that I've been your city manager since June 2014, and I will wholeheartedly admit that this has been one of the most singular focuses of my administration, was getting us to this point today. And today I'm going to go over a little bit of history on how we got here, and then I'm going to give a very elevated view of our comprehensive financial plan and what it is we exactly intend to do. So first and foremost, as you all know, the budget challenges we've had over the last couple of years, there's been a reason for it, and that is called unfunded liabilities. To give you a point of reference, when I became your city manager in 2014, our annual contribution to the pension system was $3.25 million. This year, it's scheduled to be about $5.8 million. And that's just in 5 years. That's dramatic growth. It is projected to rise all the way up to almost $9 million by 2023. Now, we haven't sat idly by. One, we reduced the operational costs of government. We actually reduced the cost of government by about more than $3 million. But all those savings, the reduction in staff, the privatization, all those savings were consumed by our growing annual contributions. Our employees also sacrificed. Not only were they doing more work because they had less people to do the same tasks they were charged to do, they also took significant concessions. In our last contract agreements, they actually bridged down their pension multiplier from 2.5 to 2. That is a significant reduction in pension benefits. And on top of that, they froze the amount of overtime that can go into your final average compensation. So your final average compensations is your highest last year's averaged out. And they actually took out their overtime costs and capped it at 100 hours. So if they work 300 hours of overtime or 400 hours of overtime, they only get 100 hours factored into their pension. That's significant savings. In addition to stagnant wages and pay freezes. On top of all of that, they took additional concessions in their health care as well, paying more for co-pays and more for doctor's visits. And also point is I'm on the same system they are. So when they take health care concessions, I took health care concessions. I took Lucy to the hospital, ER, took a little tumble last week, thought it was going to be $100, it was $250. And so it is significant cost to them. But all of these things, we have these rising payments. So a couple things that have happened. First and foremost, there's assumptions in our valuations which cause this to happen. One, we have people are living longer mortality tables. People are living longer today than they ever did. Secondly, the rate of return, meaning the discount rate. We expected when I first got here, they had the rate of return, we're going to earn 8.25% on all of our investments. Then it dropped to 7.5%. Then it dropped to 7.35% in the latest valuation. Most likely it'll drop in the future as well. Then the real kicker is we used to have what's called a revolving amortization plan, a revolving payment. So you had a 30-year mortgage. So whatever your unfunded liability was, they divided by 30, that's your payment this year. They switched several years ago to what's called a stagnant amortization, about 10 years ago. And a stagnant amortization is like your home loan. You pay off the 29th year, the 28th year, the 27th year. Now we're at year 20. So we have a shorter window to pay off our unfunded liabilities, and now we have much more realistic assumptions to realize just how great our unfunded liability is. So not only did they change the assumptions on the discount rate, mortality tables, we also have now less time to pay them off. So what we needed was a couple things. One, we needed to reform our benefit system to bring down the benefits, to cauterize the growth of the unfunded liabilities. The employees today are not the problem. In fact, the hybrid system that they're on is overfunded by over 200%. The employees today are not the problem. It's the legacy costs that we can't go back and change. They're constitutionally protected. So you can't make healthcare, unlike you can make healthcare changes, you can't make changes to the pension. And so we're left with an unfunded liability that cannot be diminished in any way. So the only option we have is to find a way to manage the payments. And what we needed was a longer time to pay it off. We needed a 30-year amortization plan. So we requested to MERS, we said, hey MERS, which is our pension manager, hey MERS, instead of 20 years, can you one time just reset the clock back to 30? We've made all these changes in-house. We filed a correction action plan with Treasury. Can you reset that clock just one time? Just one time. They went back to the actuarials, and they have actuarial standards, and there's laws on this, and they said, no, we cannot reset that plan because you are so underfunded. We're funded today about 55% at the 7.35 rate. So they said, no, we can't do that because in the future, if you have another recession or another 2008, you could have a liquidity issue, and we don't want to risk it. That's reasonable. So then, in our most recent contract negotiations, we made all these concessions. We've capped FAC. We bridged down the pension. And I went back to MERS last month, and I said, okay, MERS, listen, the status quo has changed. We've done all these reforms. We've done all these changes. We've paid $1.5 million in, additional on top of our ARC in the last few years. Can you reset us one more time? And they said, no, you still will have a liquidity issue. We can't reset you. So for the last 3 years, I have lobbied the state, the governor, the House representatives, the Senate, and the governor. I personally met with all of them. I met with the Speaker of the House, met with the Senate Majority Leader, testified for their committee. We went to Lansing, back and forth. It took us 2 years, really. We did the run, got brokenhearted at 11 o'clock at night, and then the second year we finally got it through the legislature and the governor signed it. We are able to bond, and the reason for that is we need to bond so that we can infuse our funds with enough liquidity to reset that amortization period and to have a longer period to pay back our unfunded liability. That's the only way we can do it is through bonding. But we didn't qualify because under state law, before it was changed, you need to have a AA bond rating. Well, because our bond rating had been downgraded for the last 15 years, we did not qualify. We have a current bond rating of A+ or A-, depending on which agency you use. So the state legislature changed that law so that we now qualify for bonding. Now here's the catch with the bonding plan. The law stated that you can only bond out for as long as your current amortization period. Well, our current amortization period's 20 years. That doesn't help us. That's essentially borrowing money and throwing it in the system to gamble. That's not what we're doing here. That does not provide us a longer timeline. We need to stratify our payments and to smooth those payments out. So Treasury took the unusual step, extraordinary step, of saying, listen, if MERS gives you a hypothetical 30-year amortization, we will accept that and allow you to bond out for 30 years. So the next slide I'm going to show you is a 30-year amortization. Here it is, reset the clock back to 30. This is what it looks like with no bonding proceeds. There's $5 million, $4 million, $5 million. It rises to $7 or $8 million in like 15 years. Honestly, we could do that. If they would just reset the clock, we could manage this payment structure. But again, the actuarial standards will not allow us to actually achieve this amortization schedule without bonding infusion. So the next payment schedule I have to show you is, here's the plan. We're going to bond out $53 million at an assumed rate of about 3.64%. Now, that rate may come in lower, it may come in higher. So in the comprehensive business plan, you actually have a sensitivity analysis based on the cost of issuance that takes us 50 basis points high and 50 basis points low. In addition to that, some may argue that 7.35% is still too high of a discount rate. I find myself agreeing with that. So you'll also see the discount rate at 7.35, which is the current valuation. You'll see it dropped 100 basis points to 6.35 and then 200 basis points to 5.35. So you actually have about 9 models in there showing the sensitivity on issuance cost and then cross-referencing that sensitivity with your discount rate and showing what your actual unfunded liability is. So we've taken into account market risk. That what if we don't get the rate of return we thought we were going to get? And what if we don't borrow at the cost we thought we were going to borrow? So $53 million at 3.64% is right around $2.9 million and change. So we'll round up to $3 million. That's the annual 30-year payment, $3 million. That allows us to irrevocably invest about $52 million into the pension funds. So once we put that money in, it leaves the city and goes into the pension funds and can never be revoked, not even in bankruptcy court, because it's no longer our asset. It is the assets of the pension fund and they're the employees who earned it. What will that look like? We will allow us to reset our clock. In the comprehensive financial plan, you have an agreement with MERS. MERS says that if you invest $52 million, we will one time reset your amortization to 30 years. That agreement's in the plan as well. What will that look like? This. There will be a workout period. In fact, by state law and under Bulletin 11, you have to achieve what's called a present value of at least 15%. Treasury recognizes that it will be a workout period, so they actually let you skip the first year to calculate that rate of return. In your business plan, you will see that our present value will save the taxpayers of the city of Port Huron at least $20 million, and depending on the discount rate, those savings could go as high as $40 million. This is going to save our taxpayers. So you infuse that fund, you get a new amortization period, you skip out year two, the first year and the second year based on when we issue the bonds and the calendar date. You get into the third year. We'll say it's about $1.18 million. We're going to round up to 1.2 to keep it simple tonight. So you have a $3 million bond payment, and then you have an additional ARC payment, because we're not bonding out the entire unfunded liability. State law says you can only bond up to be 80% of your unfunded liability. So you can't just take everything you owe and put it all on a 30-year note. They won't allow you to do that, because they don't want to run into an issue where you're overfunded in the future if you make too much. So we will issue, so you'll have your $53 million payment at $3 million a year, and then we'll have a remaining ARC of around $28 million, depending on what rate of return you're using. They will do that on a 30-year amortization, which gives you this payment. So you have your bond payment and your remaining ARC. So $1.2 million plus $3 million, that is $4.2 million. Our payment this year, $5.8 million. That is significant savings almost immediately. Then, in the out years, this stays relatively flat, right? It goes up to about 1.4, 1.8, less than $1 million growth over 30 years. Now, I firmly believe that by the time we pay this off, I will have a plastic heart, a plastic arm, and I'm going to make it to 102. I honestly believe that the discount rate may not come to fruition. So we have to believe that assumptions are going to change in the future. But when they change, they will change to a lesser degree. Meaning if we find out that that the unfunded liability is going to be 10% more than we thought it was going to be, then they'll be able to do that in a 30-year payment. So we're in a much better position to account for future changes by mitigating the distance in which the pendulum can swing by issuing the $52 million. Now, I'm going to show you what a graph looks like. This is 5 years. This is what we've currently paid. And now going forward, the orange is what we'll be scheduled to pay if we don't bond. The gray, here's the workout period, and then here's the flat lining of what we will pay. Now, the scary question is, if we don't bond, where are we going to get an additional $3 million? We went to our taxpayers and got a public safety and parks millage. That was never a silver bullet. That never solved the problem. But it was a lifeline to get the legislation changed and to get us the ability to refinance our unfunded liabilities. Carry this out further, and it shows you just the dramatic trajectory change we have in our unfunded liabilities. That's a $3 million payment overlaid with that 30-year amortization chart. This is the difference in annual contributions. So we will put ourselves in a cash flow positive position within 36 months. We will streamline our unfunded liabilities to a much more stratified payment system that we can afford. And in time, our unfunded liabilities will begin to inflate out, become less and less and less of a burden on the taxpayers of Port Huron. This will allow us to, one, protect core public services going forward, to prevent layoffs, to prevent cuts, and to be quite frank, to avoid any type of financial crisis, which we will face in 36 months if we don't bond. So again, this is the plan. This is significant savings we'll be having, and I will take your questions, because I'm sure there's a lot of them.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say this. We've worked on this 5 years now. I've been here 5 years. The reason why I believe that the state legislature took action, the reason why I believe that state treasury has taken such extraordinary measures to work with us is because they know we're not bluffing, and they know there's no alternative. We have to do this. And so my professional opinion is that if we don't bond and we don't infuse our systems with $52 million, our pension system is a great risk of diminishment or collapse within 36 months.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes,
I'll start.
Go right ahead.
Just two quick things. One, I want to clarify that they have guaranteed that it'll be a one-time reset, and we will go get the 30 years.
Correct.
Just in case somebody missed that.
Correct.
But I'd also like to know, and I don't think I missed it, but anyway, is there anything put in place that future administrations can't come in and raise multipliers or do something that will affect us in the future? So there's many people who may believe that raising the multipliers the last time got us into trouble, probably shouldn't have been done. Well, I'm not going to get into all of that, but is there something in place to make sure that doesn't happen again? So after we bond this out and we put all this money in, 20 years from now, we're not in the same position because somebody did it again.
Correct. Per the Act, once we issue bonds, the systems we have now can never be reopened or augmented. That doesn't mean in the future you can't create a new system, but that would be financially unwise. But you cannot reopen these systems in any way, correct?
So financially unwise does not prevent someone from creating a new one.
Not once.
Under this system, you have to close them all, and no employee can go, any employee in a current system cannot go into a new system or create a new system and transfer them over. You have to close these systems, you cannot reopen them, you cannot alter them per the Act. But we cannot tie the hands of future councils per state constitution.
So any new system would be for new employees only?
Correct.
Thank you.
You bring up another good point. We are working with our collective bargaining groups right now. One of the key issues here is that we must close all our pension systems to new hires and deploy a deferred compensation or a DC plan, defined compensation, what the private sector has a 401k system or a 4057 system. And now that will be a challenge. There are legitimate issues in a talent shortage when you're competing for workers around the state. Not offering a pension is not as lucrative. However, I'm confident that we're going to work with our collective bargaining groups to deploy a very competitive DC plan that if done right, will perform or outperform a pension system going forward. And it also offers our employees portability and freedom of choice.
Questions? Start down. You look like you want to ask a question, Councilmember Harris.
Yes. You know, James made some interesting things here, and I've spent the last couple of days recuperating and talking with people from MERS and Plant Moran and some other things. And you know, I don't think that we have to be afraid of if we have to lay off someday or something. I don't think that all the projections that you're making, that it's not a position, I think we're going to go through one of those times where things are going to be flat. But I don't think it's going to lead to a financial struggle beyond the bond issue.
Can you clarify, what do you mean by that?
I'm just saying, you know, the way the economy is, over a 30-year period, we're bound to find a period of 4 or 5 years where basically we don't meet our bond revenues and our payment sources and stuff like that. But I'm trying to think that under this plan, we will be able to, what do you think would take to correct a abnormal situation?
Yeah, Councilman Harris, you bring up an excellent point. And what Councilman Harris is saying is that essentially, you know, we're going to borrow at issuance costs at 3.64%. We're hoping to get a rate of return about 7.35 to 6.35. Some years we won't get that. We won't achieve that. Naturally, the economy will have recessions. We're probably going to approach a recession very quickly. Naturally, you'll have times of retraction. In 2008, MERS, our pension fund, lost 25%. Over 10 years, though, we got it all back. The reason for doing a 30-year amortization schedule is it provides a longer horizon to achieve your expectations and assumptions. It provides a longer opportunity to make that 7.35, to make that 6.35. What's great about the time we're borrowing now is the stars are kind of aligning for us because we're not in peak market conditions right now. There is talk of recession. When there's talk of recession, the market goes towards security, and the security is municipal bond. When we began looking at this when I first started writing the comprehensive business plan in May and June, I was using an issuance cost number of 4.75, which is a payment of 3.4 million. So just in the last few months, the municipal market has gotten so strong that now interest rates are down to 3.5, 3.64 when you factor in all the actuarial cost. We just did a sewer refinancing at 2.58, extraordinarily low interest. So we couldn't find a better time to be issuing bonds and get a cheaper rate of issuance cost. 3.64 is an incredible rate.
Yeah, and I'll just finish my comment on, you know, we talk about our recruiting efforts and how we're going to have enough money to pay employees and stuff like that. I think the biggest selling point with the city of Port Huron right now is that I think some of our police officers and firemen will want to come to Port Huron rather than Pontiac, Hamtramck, and Detroit. So I think we have a little financial advantage there in getting there.
I agree. I think one of the biggest concerns I have as the city manager is I think the biggest deterrent to talent attraction is uncertainty. Meaning we're having a very honest conversation here today. If I was a young employee looking at where I'm going to build my career, until this issue is resolved, I'm not sure I would select the city of Port Huron. Because the city manager is saying that in 36 months, if we don't get this, you know, our house in order, we're going to have serious financial issues. That's a difficult conversation for me to have. It's not politically expedient, but I have a fiduciary obligation to not only to the mayor and the council, but I have a fiduciary obligations to the staff and the employees of the city of Port Huron to be honest with them. And I told them in our town hall, there's a lot of people who will paint you a rosy picture and lie to you. But at the end of the day, the people who have the most to lose on inaction or indifference to this challenge is the hardworking men and women of the city of Port Huron. They are the ones who will bear the burden of inaction and indecision. Not us. I've been here 5 years. I haven't that much into the system. I'll be fine.
Other questions?
James, are these bonds pension obligated?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in your notes to us, you mentioned that there's a risk factor.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think Councilman Harris brought up, Councilman Warden has mentioned it numerous times, and I think it's absolutely fair, is we could borrow $53 million, put it into the system tomorrow, and have a recession where we lose 7 to 10%. Mm-hmm. That is, in fact, not only is that could happen, but I would imagine we will lose between 5 and 7% in the next 36 months to 4 years. However, in a longer horizon, we will earn that back, just like we did in the 2008 losses. And over time, we shall come out in a much better position. Also, in that time, if they change the assumptions or our evaluations, we now are in better positions to cope with those changes and mitigate them to a smaller and smaller swinging area.
So that's your countermeasure to suffice for the risk.
Correct.
That may be
Correct. In fact, MERS, if you look at, in our actuarial report there and in the comprehensive plan, I actually gave you, I believe, the last 5 and 10 years of market performance for MERS. So I gave you actually what the pension fund did, and then I actually gave you what the market rate was. So you have the market rate and the actuarial rate. The reason for that is a pension system is a little bit more conservative than the market, because when you're dealing with people's livelihoods, you're not doing risky financial transactions, you're not in a very aggressive portfolio, and you're conservative. So they're not making as much, but they're definitely not losing as much as well.
I needed that, okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Warden?
well, first, I just got to say, a lot of compliments to City Manager Freed and the staff and administration. It's been well over 3.5, 4 years. He came into town. When he did, he dug in and saw this looming thing, and this has been first and foremost in his everyday life. And it's a lot of accomplishments that you've achieved, informing not only the citizens but also the employees and staff, and hey, what are we really running into? So I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank, of course, Ed Brennan. When you guys are putting this stuff together, I mean, it's really complex. And you guys put an awful lot of work together in this. And of course, there's other people involved, I'm sure, to try to be able to get this whole thing, figure out what needs to be done, how to if they say no, or hey, we need something else, how do you get MERS to what can be done? So I applaud that effort. The stuff that I shared, you know, what I want to say from the beginning when we started talking about this in the budget, and then, you know, kind of after follow-up there, is really trying to just to make sure and share, to do anything I can when something like this, I know it's a major, you shared an awful lot, but also my own understanding as I've been listening to every word, reading every single thing. The goal was to make sure that we really put it out there, and I, you know, shared a bunch of examples and articles and things of other cities, and that really was to just make sure when we're evaluating this that we're taking that into consideration, because nothing's guaranteed in the future, but there also history repeats itself. The market is the market, and the economy definitely has swings. There's just no way, because it always overreacts to the positive, and then it also digests when times are slowing down. So I did want to just make sure I said that the main thing I had here is, from my standpoint, and again, each council member has different, you know, involvement or what they would like, and I tried my best not to, you know, request or try to nag or try to figure out how to get information. I wanted to put it out there at council meetings in I think it was March, or was it May maybe? Let's see. Back in the meeting. And my suggestion and question, as I said it amongst here, is I was really looking forward to see, just as you're evaluating and doing due diligence, what may be, because the 52 million or 53 million, we know we talked in the initial budget talk, that's kind of like the cap that the city as a whole might be able to get up to, and at least that was back in the time frame. And I thought, you know, there might just be, if we look at it, is there a different potential amount? What would it look like? What would the scenario look like if it was 10 or 15 or 20 or 25, or maybe it's 50 million or 44? You know, these type of scenarios is what I was kind of looking for, just to be involved, to be able to give. I know you always ask for any other viable option or any other suggestions. Well, in mine, look, I was requesting that information so I could try to help and give that feedback. And, you know, I think I just have some notes here I just want to share. I'm, you know, as of May, requesting that in council meeting in this forum, and then again in July, followed up and said, hey, we haven't received anything other than the first spreadsheet and stuff. And I thought, wow, you guys put the work in, all the spreadsheet for 52 million. I had to assume that you probably, even prior to that or throughout, maybe have, you know, even came up with what would some other numbers be. What if it's only 30 million or 40 million? And I kind of wanted to see that product. That's what I was requesting. And for whatever reason, I'm still here today, and, you know, just as a council member, I've not received any of that, you know, other options that I tried to request. So I just wanted to get feedback on
Can I
that.
address that before we go on, because I don't want to get too far in? So, first and foremost, our debt limit is not 53 million. Our debt limit under state statute
60-something.
is 61
Yeah, 60.
million and change. So the 53 million, so the reason why you don't receive proposals that show you 40 million and 30 million and 20 million, at one point you proposed $10 million increments, is because in the agreement, as we noted before, there is an agreement with MERS on the one-time extension. The $53 million is not only based on what our debt capability is, because we didn't want to max out the credit card. Because what if there's an issue? What if the city hall burns down? What if a tornado hits the city? What if we need to issue emergency bonds? Whatever the reason is. The $53 million was negotiated with MERS and the actuarial scientists and the actuarial standards on what will it take to reset the clock back to 30 years. So if we reduce below $53 million to any lower increment, we will, one, not reach close to the 80% threshold that is required under Bulletin 11 by State Treasury, but it's highly unlikely that the actuarial scientists will allow us to reset that clock to 30 years. In fact, I was point blank told by the actuarials, you need to dump in at least $50 million if you're going to get this thing reset to 30 years. So the reason why you don't have different models is because it doesn't achieve the goal of a longer horizon to pay off our unfunded liabilities. It doesn't solve the problem. So you would have issued bonds and achieved nothing.
Yeah, again, coming from just a perspective of city taxpayer money, what we're going to borrow, the viewpoint is what are the limits, what can we do, and then also to again, potentially save a little powder if we need to 3-4 years down the road. You know, is there potential for another bonding or something else comes up, legislative action changes, and they're going to be monitoring this to see how successful, and again,
one of the things is
sometimes they don't move as fast as you want to.
One of the things I want to bring up is
so,
when you pass out the articles for all the stories across
Yeah.
this country where bonding maybe didn't work, you're not the only one who saw those. State Treasury took note of that. State Legislature took note of that. When I was negotiating with the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader and the Governor and the State Treasurer, we specifically talked about what happened in those scenarios. That's why you actually have a corrective action plan, this comprehensive financial plan. So we filed a corrective action plan with Treasury, and now we filed a comprehensive plan because other communities didn't close their systems. So they bonded out and continued racking up unfunded liabilities. They didn't have the political will or the moral will to lead on doing what was right and reducing the pension benefit and capping FAC. They essentially just went out and issued bonds. They did no sensitivity analysis. They did no market analysis. They did no modular on the 9 different scenarios. And so, one, they continued issuing. It's like refinancing your credit card but keeping your credit card open and keep swiping. That's what they did. And that's cowardness. And so I look at what those systems done, and those were lessons learned from all across the country. So when we wrote that legislation, and when Treasury issued Bulletin 11, all of those issues where other communities have failed were factored into that. So this is probably one of the best bonding packages and best business plan you'll see, I would argue, anywhere else in the country.
I appreciate that. And again, when I was handing that stuff out, pulling that up, it's really for me to give at a council meeting to other council members, whether we had it before or not, if you knew about it, we're the ones, the more that we could be educated on this stuff so we can have a good view, ask good questions, and make sure that we're trying to come up with the best possible scenario and know the risks of what it's going to take. The other thing, you mentioned it here, again, the 7.35%, and again, that's just the actuarial. The good news is that that's what they're using as an assumption, and that's what they're telling us, hey, this is what you should use. And when we have those type of potential payments, assuming that return, we actually have the choice to go over and above that. And that's the key that I want to make sure that as you know, this council and to the current administration, and Councilmember Archibald said, hey, is there something that for future we can't let somebody wreck this ship when it's halfway in. But that's the real key too, because we have OPEB unfunded liability, we have other expenses, we're going to have to deal with this, and to be able to commit potentially more toward, even more than that required amount is something that I would want us to do the budget, figure it out, and then see if there's any way to even be a little more proactive with a plan, which hopefully you're on board with as well.
Wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on maybe the 7.35 is a little bit too aggressive. I think you and I have common ground there.
We get it.
I think that's one of the reasons why we issued in 15, 16, and 18 the additional $500,000 payment above and beyond our ARC. So what you're saying is what we've already been doing. We've put in $500,000 3 years, almost 3 years in a row, except for that 1 year where it got tight, we had to skip. But going forward, I think that is a critical question that we should have at budget time, saying, should we adopt, because really the difference in the current amortization versus the 7.35 and 6.35, we can do both. And so that's an honest conversation that we should have at the goal setting session. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And again, it just, with what we have to submit in, what we have to get to try to get approved, what we have to put out there, and then also take that extra step, just because in the past, the payments are there, we need to make sure we, try to, because I don't know that you're not really allowed to, and with the interest rate so low that potentially you're not really going to be wanting to refinance or pay them off early if we can get them at 3.5% or 4%. The bondholders, once they give it to us, that's what we're paying them back at for that period. So really, that part of the factor is very important, and it's a positive, a lot of positives. I want to thank also, again, the police, fire, the unions, everybody that actually, over the years, did step up, did negotiate, and did lower their factors, and cap and FAC. This thing is just a massive burden that we've been undertaking and aggressively trying to figure out solutions. So the only other thing that we have to do is, again, just you kind of made it clear here, and again, MERS, we have to count on MERS, that's part of it. Once we borrow the $52 million, just like you mentioned, it has to go right to them. They they buy into whatever investment allocation they have, and we're going to have to hope that they, have a way to mitigate losses and kind of offset the, in case there is a major downturn. I don't think they can go to just straight cash, but and I don't know if there's one more thing here. Yeah, and again, I think you mentioned it. Just going forward in the public and that as well, I really hope that we, as we get excited, as we think about the potential for having a higher interest rate and maybe actually making, over a period of time, maybe it does perform and outperform what we're doing. I think at this point we have to really take a stance to say, hey, we need to have it at what if, and even if at the 5.5% or 5.35%, what would that look like? And say, look, this is reality. If we do better, we do better, but we need to, and that's what I'd like to see put out and informed to the public going forward if you're going forward with this thing.
Yep, and that you'll see, so you will see I have given you the 30-year amortization at 6.35, and I've given you the 30-year amortization at 5.35. So again, that's the 100, 200 basis point reduction that's required by Bulletin 11. Mm-hmm. So in this plan, the citizens can download it tonight, and any employee can download it tonight and have that exact same amortization schedule.
No, thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Ashford.
And that all includes the market value that we were having that big to do a few years ago, a few months ago, whatever. I just wanted to mention that. And I, too, would like to thank you and the staff, because I know it wasn't a one-man show behind you, but that is one thing that you are good at. You're good at your finances.
The one thing.
And well, I mean,
there's consensus in that.
well, I mean, that's another thing that, I done it now, okay. And then our financial staff and everything, and you guys you do a wonderful job. But what I'd like to make clear up here is that we don't have a choice. There's no option. What is before us tonight, this is something that we have to do to survive as a city. And actually, what James has done, him and his staff, is that you don't get this, but we get the packet up here, and these yellow flippy notes, he went back as far as 3 years ago with data that he wanted to match to make sure he's seeing what he's seeing is true. And so I found myself matching that data with his presentation that he's making tonight. And then also he positioned us and reaching out for this information, the outlook on our credit, when you want to buy something, you want to get something, everybody want to know, are you reputable, and so if you want to know how reputable you are as a city, just bear with me, it's only 3 lines. The stable outlook reflects our view of Port Huron's very strong budget flexibility and liquidity, yeah. We do not anticipate changing the ratings within the 2 years outlook horizon as we expect the city will maintain its strong, and I repeat, strong budgetary performance and management conditions, but view any significant strengthening of the economy score is unlikely. Additionally, any weakening in the debt and contingent liability profile could pressure the rating, but we're looking good, and we are good, and he has positioned us, you know, in a different way that we can't afford to do what we're doing up here tonight. So that takes in all the employees that did the freezing of the pay raises or whatever, the millage that we did. So we're all in this together, and we have to continue to move ahead like that and move forward together. So it's not just about your city manager, but it's about what you can do out there as the people of Port Huron. And Dave Haynes, you in this too, or everybody. So I just want to make that clear that this is a real huge move for us. I know we had to come up with our corrective action plan. We had to do all this, so this is part of a bigger picture. But this right here is really the apex of it all. And the last thing I would like to ask James is that I know a lot of cities found themselves in this too. Did you see any other cities? I mean, I know some have bonded when they took the same route that we are taking tonight.
So I'm very close with city managers from across the state. We talk on a daily basis. There has been, we talk the most about unfunded liabilities, and we talk the first. But that's because a lot of other communities didn't have the political will and the moral courage all of you did to address the issue.
Right.
And now we're seeing that inaction and indecision is a decision. And other communities are finding themselves in a very terrible situation that they should have acted sooner. I am very concerned about some municipalities across the state of Michigan who haven't led, who haven't addressed this issue, and I will believe that in the next 5 years, this will be one of the singular most important issues facing government and state government as a whole.
Right.
And they're watching us closely.
And they are, and we're definitely a model in that leadership effort in moving, having everybody else look at us and see what we're doing. But the only thing that I talked to another municipality, they said that we didn't have the courage and the backbone that you guys did going along, you know, the route. So it's something you just can't come in and say, we're going to do it right at this point. You have to have that prelude of faith moving forward. So thank you, James. Thank you, City, and thank you, City of Port Huron employees. Thank you.
Question. What is now the timetable for the rest of, as everything's going to progress from here?
So Treasury has given me permission. We weren't sure if we were allowed to move this process forward while simultaneously negotiating with our collective bargaining groups. Because the timeline is sensitive, Treasury has given me permission that yes, you can move forward with your notice of intent and move forward with your comprehensive business plan, because there's statutory timelines and everything. We'll have to issue certifications, publishing dates. I want to get this done before January. I want to get our collective bargaining agreements negotiated. There's a lot of things to talk about. And I want to work with our collective bargaining groups, and I want to get this done in a very timely fashion, and I want to be in market by January.
Cool. So what's the next thing we will expect to see?
So you'll do your notice of intent, you'll do your comprehensive business plan tonight, we'll begin the statutory clock rolling on that, and then in 45 days I'll bring you additional resolutions. Before I go down, I just want to do a little recap here. When I got here in 2014, began assessing the situation, I brought my first budget to you, and there was a headline in the Times-Herald that says, City Manager wants to cut $1 million. I still have that headline in my office. I have it folded. And I just want to say this. I never wanted to be the city manager that woke up and cut $1 million and proposed to you cuts. And I know you never want to be the mayor and council who had to vote on those cuts. It is the most difficult decision. I call it the burden of leadership. There's nothing more sickening and heartbreaking than getting on the elevator, passing employees in the office, knowing that them and their families are worried if they're going to have a job on July 1st. I can only imagine the anxiety, the worry of, am I going to have a job? And it breaks my heart that our employees had to go through that. It is, I know I put on a good smile, and I try being a good face, and that I'm a strong leader, but this was a very challenging 5 years for my wife and I and my family to have to to lead in this process. But I knew that these difficult decisions, like all of you knew, this was the moral test, the great question of our time. Do we have the moral and political will to lead on these issues? When I was holding my employee town hall, I had a police officer who's going to retire in 7 years. And he said, James, just a simple question. I'm going to retire in 7 years. Is my pension going to be there for me? And again, that statement to me just wanted to make me cry. How sick. A guy who's dedicated his entire life to protecting the citizens of this community has to have that question. As the city manager of Port Huron, I refuse to let that question linger any longer. We have to take action on this. And I also believe that this is a calculated business decision here. I've looked at this decision. I've traveled the entire state, finding people who are smarter than I am, which is hard to do, to give me their opinion. And I just got that one in. But no one can bring me a more viable alternative. And so this is what I believe is going to happen. I firmly believe that the economic conditions in Port Huron, private enterprise is leading. We have $300 million of investment in this community. We have more than 2,000 new jobs. Port Huron is booming. We're going to get this fixed. Our employees are going to have that security that they deserve. They're going to have that surety knowing that their system's going to be there for them, and that the citizens of this community are going to know that we have a cash flow positive future. Your local services, your quality parks and recreation, your extraordinary police and fire, the gorgeous McMorran, those are going to be protected. Those are going to be here for this community. This is not doom and gloom. I know we're going to get this done. I have no doubt we're going to get this done, and we're going to take this community to prosperity. I've said this time and time again. My daughter, Jeff's kids, and your kids will never get to decide. They don't get the luxury to decide on what kind of community they're going to grow up in. We make those decisions today. And I believe that we're going to put them in a very prosperous position, in a cash flow positive position that allows my daughter and your kids and the children of this community to build the future for their kids that they desire. And we're going to free them from the unyielding burden of unfunded liabilities. It needs to finally be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody for the opportunity, so I will just add to that I thank you for all your hard work and the staff, and I know you've got spent many, many hours working on this. So thank you very much. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Warden?
No.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. We'll move on to item 2 under resolutions.
Authorizing the removal of the traffic control signals at the intersection of 7th Street and Court Street and 7th Street and Union Street.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Councilmember Pemberton, supported by Councilmember Ashford, and I wonder if I could ask for a update on this as far as comments we've received.
The streetlight?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to have Chief Platzer come up and give a quick, they did a little study out there. I also want to say I talked to Mr. Fisher earlier this week. Some of their concerns they bring up about pedestrian safety are spot on. I get that. I think there's a lot of enhancements we can do, similar to what we've done downtown with some enhanced striping and enhanced signage, enhanced notification of those crosswalks. And that is something we will be working on with engineering to provide that as well.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager Freed. Just give you a little bit of background on this. We had Officer Rudicelli, who's our traffic safety officer, look into this. And speaking with Eric Witter, we found that in 2017 they did a traffic study back there looking at the same issues with removing the traffic signals. Back in May, we met with the Traffic Safety Committee Board. At that time, it was decided to take a further look at it. That way, we moved the traffic signals into the flashing mode. We put up stop signs at both the intersections, eastbound Court at 7th and, westbound Court at 7th and an eastbound Union at 7th. I had Officer Rudicelli even go deeper. He went back the last 2 years to see if we've had any traffic accidents at 7th and Union, 7th and Court. There's been none. So the last 2 years, there's been no traffic accidents in that area. We've been doing traffic studies over there, monitoring the traffic flow. The other day, Officer Rudicelli worked stationary radar there. He said that the average speed of the cars were between 25 and 30. He said that he had 2 that was going 15 over, that he didn't stop because he was conducting the traffic survey. But his comments were that 85 percentile was traveling at or below the speed limit there. We went to the Unified Traffic Control Division laws, and there's a thing that states that yield or stop signs shall not be used for speed control. So they even talk about that, once a decision has been made to control an intersection, the decision regarding the appropriate roadway to control should be based on engineering judgment. In most cases, the roadway carrying the lowest volume of traffic should be controlled. A yield or stop sign should not be installed in higher volume roadways unless justified. So from what we've researched, I've even spent time over there monitoring the area. I just have not seen an abundance of traffic going above the posted speed limit. I did listen to the comments tonight. There are concerns, but there are concerns too if you have a red light or a green light there too, that somebody could walk out and be crossing and not see the traffic. I've been in contact with Mr. Witter. We talked about some things that need some improvement. There's a bush in your property that we can't see around, and there's some other signage that we'd have to work on to make sure that you can see both north and south. But I don't see any issues with the removal of the traffic signals from my point.
Madam Mayor, since I talked with Mr. Fisher, Chief, first of all, I appreciate you doing the due diligence and sending our traffic safety officer out there. Since I talked with Mr. Fisher, I believe we talked Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember when we talked. Thursday. I actually drove through there just to look at it, and there's a lot of gorgeous trees, and there's a lot of, it's a very mature neighborhood, and the intersection, it needs to be more identifiable for the crosswalks. And so, because you could be driving and not know there's an intersection there. And so I think there's a lot of enhancements that we can do to pedestrian safety there that doesn't have a light that could address some of those concerns. I drove it and I personally saw your concerns about that crosswalk is not really defined right now. So there's a lot of things we can do there. So we've done it to Stone, we've done it to 24th Street out by Knox Field, we've done it to downtown. So I think there's some solutions there we can do to help that out.
Any questions from anyone?
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
Councilmember
Ward.
You were mentioning about the yield versus the stop study that you were just referencing. Is this going to be a four-way stop, or is it not?
No.
There's going to be the lower traffic is going to be yield, and the other one's going to have stop sign, or what?
Correct. So north and southbound 7th Street will be flowing with no stop signs. So westbound Court at 7th Street will be stop signs.
Okay.
And then eastbound Union Street at 7th Street will be stop signs. And the way they have it right now is they have stop signs on both corners, along with flags over top for the drivers to see.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the neighborhood coming forward as well and kind of sharing. You look right out the front porch or window and see it all times and looking out for the neighbors. And we've been pretty proactive. I think even some of those, been a couple of years now, like out front of Casey's and some of the areas where they have those little things in the street, traffic slowing. Is there something that, in the future here that for some of these things, if we need to, that we could test some of those out, maybe in neighborhoods like this, if we need to?
Yeah, I think this is a great case to do it.
If it's, I can't imagine putting speed bumps in there yet, but it's a good suggestion. And I'm not an expert, so I'll leave it up to them, but yeah, thank you.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. Tom Archibald.
Do we have a time frame on when we would be doing the enhanced crosswalks or whatever it is you're proposing with Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is we'll do enhanced painting. I want to get the crosswalks painted and more defined right now. And then the signs that we typically do, those can only go, they have to be up, taken down November 15th, and they can't go up before April 15th. And so I'd imagine in spring we'll do the signs because of snow plows.
But the sidewalk markings will be.
Yeah, we can get that done this fall. Right, Witter?
I see a yes.
He'll paint them himself if all fails.
And as a follow-up to that, is there a time frame where we would maybe revisit and assess if that is effective?
I think it's something the Traffic Safety Committee could look at next summer again after all the markings are up and the traffic, and then look at the data. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris?
I didn't hear any discussion on rumble strips for slow and 7th Street down.
Yeah,
if you see them on some of your highway projects, a lot of them now and stuff and things like that, and they put them in advance and they increase, but I think the rumble strip sometimes will educate people. We've been educated on 7th Street that you can basically freewheel it.
Well,
And we're asking everybody to change what they do.
we can look at that. I know it sounds really, like, even the signs that we put out had a book of regulations. I kid you not, it's this thick, just for that sign. So rumble strips has a certain regulation, and so I can't quote it chapter and verse, but it's something we can definitely look at.
Mayor Rapp, I just have, if this does go through and it becomes a yield and then some stop signs or removing the light, how hard is it, or would it be if it's decided that, hey, it's decided they need to put a light back in? Is that something that is
There's a
big
process
barrier
now.
with is it with the state or whoever?
There's a process where we have to go through a study again
Okay.
and meet warrants. Right now, it meets what's called warrants, the traffic counts, the volume and all that. Right now, there's absolutely no warrants which justify those lights. But in the future, if we do a study and there's warrants that justify a light, then there's something we can easily visit.
Okay. And again, as the neighborhood kind of steps up with this, is there, with other neighborhoods like that that are potentially losing a light, is it something that they would, the whole street or a couple blocks or something like that, have, if they had a suggestion or input into it, if they want to have it removed or not? I'm not sure if they're looking to not have it removed or just to make sure it's aware. Wasn't sure of the comments there.
I guess I don't understand what you're asking.
The suggestions from the neighborhood there did they want to have it removed, or did they?
I think they're concerned, if I get this right, I don't want to speak for you. I believe the concern was pedestrian safety and making sure there's safe places to cross and that the crosswalks are identifiable and.
That's the biggest thing,
Yeah.
guys. It's just, we don't want to see anybody get hurt.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
I got to imagine when the hotel gets up and a lot more stuff, then you're going to have more people walking too, so it's going to be,
That's another thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
We will take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes?
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Resolution 5.
Confirming and approving single-lot special assessments for fines, assessments, and/or the cost of removing blight, blighting factors, and/or causes of blight, as well as the abatement of the nuisances.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Pemberton. Discussion.
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris.
I went down and visited one of my piece of property in our neighborhood there, 421 17th. It's the third from the bottom on the thing here. And we've got an assessment of $330 for landscaping. And I get a couple of pictures that I'll share with you, but basically, I don't know what these people were paying $330 for. It looks like basically no work has been completed at all, except maybe a weed whacking in the backyard. But if you just look at some of these pictures and stuff here, I'll just share you. And I think we just gotta have a little higher standard on trying to get blight. I think blight's really still an issue in Port Huron, and I think we have to kind of jump on some of these things. And there was another one that jumped out at me for open storage on 1702 16th Street when a place right across the street is identical to it, but much worse. And we don't see them on the list.
I would assume
So
that,
it's just, I just think we just need a little house cleaning and stuff and try to address these issues so they don't surface. You know, the condition of that right there has been that way for months. And we got a thing in here that says that somebody's charging $330 to clean it up. And it's quite obvious nothing's been done.
I would assume that those charges were quite a while ago, because by the time they get a bill and they don't pay it, then it goes on the assessment roll, so.
The people in the church there and stuff, it's been an issue in their parking lot because it's right adjacent. So it's just kind of a housekeeping thing. It's something we need to pay attention to, so thank you.
And unfortunately, it still continues even after they get a bill. And grass does grow, so. Any other questions or discussion on this item? I'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeden? Yes. Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
I mean, I already answered, didn't I? I was supposed to be
Sorry?
Archibald. Oh,
Oh, sorry, Archibald.
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
I lost my mind. I'm like, what am I saying?
That's okay. That concludes our regular agenda. I have one announcement. If you own property on the lake, river, or canal, the flood maps will be changing, and this may affect your property. FEMA will be hosting an informational meeting in October. So after October the 1st, please check the city's website at www.porthuron.org for meeting information. Is there anything else to come before the council?
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Ward.
I just wanted to thank, again, some of the people that came today at public comment and providing a bunch of research here. I'm looking forward to review that. It's very helpful and that type of thing. Also, the Old Town neighborhood there coming to speak. And again, Kyle Bailey, what an inspiration. Met him before I even knew about that stuff, and his personality is positive and quite an what a great guy to in what you're doing there to bring awareness. I do want to also share, I've never, it's been there for 20-some years, and I'm not one to attend something like this, but I thought, you know what, I see the big pageant thing there for Michigan right here in the city of Port Huron at McMorran Theater, and it's been there for, I think, 20 years.
20 years.
20-some years right here. And so I did just say, you know what, I'm going to go over there. And I did. It's a first-class operation. And it just, when I think about that, I didn't stay for the show later. I just, to have all the different, there's different walks of life, there's different things that go on, there's different organizations, and they could have that place anywhere in Michigan. And it's a true compliment to the city of Port Huron, McMorran Theater, and to draw stuff like that is, I normally would not go to, but it is right here, and it was pretty amazing. So I just wanted to mention that.
You know, bringing that up, I guess I wasn't going to pass it on, but just a minute, I'm going to try and find this. If I can, I hate it when they all group together and you can't get back to your original email, so I'm just going to paraphrase. I actually did get an email today from a gentleman who is a captain in the police force in Cincinnati, and he's been here for the past 6 years. I think he might be related to the producer of the show. Anyways, he just wanted to tell me how wonderful the people are in Port Huron and how much that they enjoy coming here, and especially was impressed with, and I know she does a wonderful job, so I will give her credit, Marcy Fogel does a wonderful job with the whole pageant, and they were very impressed with her. They were extremely impressed with our McMorran staff and the fact that their security and all of the people would go out of their way. They were also very impressed with, they had a dealing where one of the girls' tire went flat and her car wasn't in good shape, and they got help from Bell Tire, so they went as far as to say that even the people at Bell Tire. And then they, of course, did also thank me for coming. I did go and give a presentation and plaque to them celebrating my 20 years.
Oh, good.
So it was just nice and heartwarming to get a letter like that where he said, Port Huron's one of my favorite places and loves coming here and thinks it's great. The people are great. And those are always heartwarming letters to get. We don't. Yes.
Sorry, my
with that.
apologies.
We don't always get the congratulations. We certainly can get criticisms at times. So now that you brought that up, I guess I will pass that along, that he was thoroughly impressed with everything that went on. And it was a nice program. Is there anything else to come before the council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Meeting adjourned.